Pasha Paro, YN7. Thank you for tuning. Got V back on. So V, and the
Yep.
last time we had you on, we was talking about how sound design is settling debt. And then we went into a nice spiel about the metaverse and film and scoring. So today, you had a great topic you wanted to cover, um, uh, centered around the word composer.
Right.
So
See, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no,
I'm
you
eating.
good. You good. So real quick,
Okay.
I just want to show the people what composer is per etymology dictionary. I was going to say Black's Law Dictionary. Look, come on.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, we've
per
been deep in that one. Okay, go ahead.
per the
Got you.
etymology dictionary, it compose is to put together, arrange, and it comes from the combination of together, put, place, and then the root word is pose, right?
Right.
Okay. So then composer came about in 1597. So go ahead and give the people an introduction to composer as you see it, and let's get into today's topic.
Okay, well, I'm a music composer for film. And actually, I'm a music composer, period. I got into composing for visual media in the late 90s, 98, 99. I started out in Atlanta before that, but it was just, me messing around with the local the video club in Atlanta and bringing my talents to the table, music and audio recording. And I fell into post audio recording, but I didn't stay there because I was really interested in the whole process. But I became more interested in the whole process so that I could gain and garnish respect as a composer. So now a composer as a composer is great. Songwriters, music makers, beat makers, all composers. If you make music and you're recording it and you can share it, you're composing. Now, composing for visual media, that's a specialized field of employ. Composing for visual media is all about enhancing the story to be told in the film, animation, series, TV, webisode, whatever it is. Uh, there's a lot of sound design involved in composing. Some composers are also sound designers. Sometimes I've worn both hats. And the sound design is making non-musical instruments or sounds that are related to something that's within the scene or the storyline become musical, not so much musical, but more so musical or melodic to the point where they help tell the story. And there's a particular identifying sound. Now, in music, we have far, far more options because of the genres of music. We got blues, rock, gospel, several kinds of hip hop, several kinds of dance house, EDM, which is electronic dance music, which is also techno, which stems a lot out of the electronic music era, the late 70s, early 90s, synthesizers and, discos and all that stuff. Got R&B, you got ballads, you got classic and classical. Classical instrumentation from an orchestral standpoint, from a symphonic standpoint, is by far it's the most popular or promoted or published or promulgated. And what we mean by that is it's been popularized. Most movies you see have an orchestral underscore to it. And there are very famous composers. It's made their composers famous and some of them wealthy. People like John Williams, Herbie Hancock, Quincy Jones, people like Hans Zimmer is on my top list. So we get into people that are actually so gifted, so they're so popular with how and their style and the type of music they use to help tell the story, and that's made them pretty well known and in some cases pretty well off, pretty rich.
So
So now,
so that
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so you mentioned that it's about telling a story. And going back to the prior video, it's settling a debt. And we spoke about how the scoring solved the issue of what was missing from the silent films. So to
Oh
carry that
yeah,
over to today's topic, the composer, based on the definition, it's all about the arrangement. It's about bringing the structure.
right.
And now that you mentioned the word story, I think that ties in great to there's basic blueprints to how to write a great story, so to speak. You know what I mean? And describe for the people what a composer's role is. How do you and what a composer is used for in fabricating and a compelling story.
I'm glad you put it that way. What a composer's job is and what he's used for, it's all about the director. There's no ego for a composer in this. If you're a beat maker and you want the fame and you want to beat the glory, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that without having amassed a body of work, several films, maybe up to a dozen films to make your name known, and then you could begin to get some notoriety. But getting back to it, what he's used for is mainly to help the director tell the story in his film. Just like the costume designer, the lighting director, the director of photography tells the camera where to go and how to give your eye view that view that tells the story. The dialogue, the mannerisms, the type of speech, those are directed by the director directly. And it's no different with the music maker. So music makers have to have the tools to be able to communicate with the director. And it's not really a specialized skill set. It's just a matter of helping the director explain to you without music terms, because they're not composers. You meet a director that has composition skills, he's primarily scoring his film through you, which is fine with me. You know, I don't have much of an ego when it comes to this stuff, but when it comes down to them actually knowing what they want, this is where we have a problem, you know, because temp tracks come in, it'll be something that they like. They can't tell you they want you to copy it because that would be moral and illegal in some places, but they want you to copy it, you know. So the bottom line is you pretty much kowtow to what the director wants. And if you accept that, that's not a bad deal because he's really basically telling you what he wants. I need some scary music right here. I need it to be really scary. Given a good example, I did a movie back in 2012 called Last Words. Conrad Byron Irwin was the director and the writer, I believe. He was the director for sure. And after telling me the story, I thought it was a story about a guy's sweet little old mom dying, you know, old age. And then I get deeper into the script. They're estranged. They parted ways 20 years before her dying day. And she can't die because she hasn't told her son, I forgive you. And they haven't said, I love you. And they haven't had closure. That's pretty much it. So she couldn't die until she had that closure. And the bottom line was the son was a monster because he came by just to say those words so she could have closure. And that was the undertowing horror of the film. It was a short, and it very much depended on my music making it a horror. So I had these underlying tones, modal tones of minor chord progressions, A minor scale, and it's and it just seemed like I couldn't get it more signified in the horror sense. And the director kept pushing. He said, make it more scary, make it more scary. So I had to stop looking at the image. I had to stop looking at the image, understand the story and the direction from the director, go back to the time signature I had, keep that time signature, and just go to the points like her, where they agreed on the last words, her finally forgiving him finally forgiving her releasing, and finally dying. That scene was all of, I think it was 1:08 of intensity, of peak. And I had to make that music. You would think that, you know, someone was being poisoned or murdered. But the point is, it was it was about horror, and it was about that for the director, and I had to comply and make the music. He loved it. People who viewed it loved it, as far as I know.
So,
And on to the next.
so with that example, right? And you gave a nice story of how the director came with the temp track, and you actually in that story told about some of the obstacles and challenges when you're given direction from the director. It's a back and forth with things that gotta be agreed upon. Ultimately, they're
Oh
your
yeah.
client, right? They're your
Oh yeah.
customer. So explain the thin line between creative and original, and then working off that temp track.
Okay. Original, we have a spotting session. We gel ideas. He would tell me, okay, I want horror. Let's just go off the horror thing since we're there.
Mhm.
He wants horror. So now I have the low tones setting the tone. Hans Zimmer loves D. He can get down deep, low. I've done it. A is good enough for me. A and G. G is more of a happy blues medium key for me, but I can do things with G and make it minor. It's all unified because each note has the scale that identifies in the same exact way in the modes. Now, getting back to answer your question, it's a matter of taking that stride. The difference between following the temp track, and he'll find it, she, whoever the director is, you may find a temp track that they have edited just right to fit their scene. And the honest ones, not that they're not dishonest, but the ones who up front and just tell you, okay, you see how the music hits right here? I need you to hit right here. I need you to hit right here. Okay, I missed right here because their edit didn't work out the way they wanted. But you get that one where that edit is 9 points out of 10 hitting on the visual, like as soon as a cut happens or as soon as an incident happens within the action of the actors or the characters, and there's a climax point, like a punch or falling off a building or the impact of something or the discovery of something that the character sees or their eyes, that you have to get, those are impact points and you have to mark those. This is all usually done in a spotting session where there's no temp. You're free to go. Got this. Then you have to come up with it. Then you have to send it in. I usually come up with 1 to 2 to 3, no more than 3 examples. I usually do 1 or 2. And I'll send those mixes, stereo mixes for that particular scene in. A lot of times I'll copy it back with the scene and drop it, Dropbox or transfer, or whatever large file transfer you can use, and you work that way. Or you may work off of Frame.io, which is a service. It's a software that allows you to share projects, video, audio, whatever it is. And you can share it within the medium and the spectrum of your digital audio workstation or your editing platform, whatever. But getting back to it now, me just freestyling it, that's part of the process with, okay, this is what I want, no temp track. But the temp track is constantly there, and I don't care how you cut it. They want you to do the temp track music. That's what they want. But they can't tell you that. And you can't plagiarize it, you shouldn't. But I mean, I have a particular skill set. I don't hate to sound like Liam Neeson in Taken, but I have a particular skill set that's allowed me to take any sound, any image, and make music from it. Now, people will tell you this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That actually brings up a good element, because it's showcasing the importance of the composer. No matter how great the director in the film, they really can't, unless they go and pay exorbitant amounts for licensing, they really can't sell or tell the story properly without the composer's role. Because you're kind of there to express the relevant emotion, right?
It's the original music, yes. It's original. That's what you're hitting on, is the fact that it's original. It's just like the costumer. The costumer is creating a costume to identify that particular character. And it must tell everything down to the stitch and the color, the style. How high is the collar? Does it fall down? What does it do? All that stuff. Same thing with composing. So now when they give me the temp track, Usually I just can't stand temp tracks, and I don't know any composers that like them. And if you do, you're lazy and you're not being creative, you're just copying. You know, if you're good at copying, great. I mean, but for me, the temp track, I'll play it 2 or 3 times. I'll match it for the what we call the points, the mark, the markers, the impact points,
Mhm.
and then I'll step away from it. Or I'll hear the genre of it and I'll ask. I mean, because some of them will want the genre. Like this one director brought to me air guitar type stuff, Pat Metheny, which I love. I love Pat Metheny. I have the Airstream album. But the point is, that's a hard guitar sound to obtain and copy and get. And when you do get it, everybody knows you're doing Pat Metheny. That's his particular sound. You
Mhm.
follow what I'm saying? You know, that's his particular type of sound. And the director fell in love with that sound and wanted it badly. So some places you can't get away with it, you know. If I was the big budget Hans Zimmer type of composer, I would just hire Pat Metheny. I would make these melodies and have him come in and play it, and I would feature him on it. And I'd say, you know, played by Pat Metheny or additional music credit, or I might even split some of the publishing off of it with him, which is part of what I do. But that's a whole nother subject. We can talk about that on another. But back to it, yes. The difference is your work versus copying someone else's work. And as
So
mentioned, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. Go ahead. You, as mentioned.
Yeah, as I mentioned, like I have a particular skill set that allows me to translate any of my 5 senses into music. I don't really know how this came about. I know the period of when it came about, but I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a neuroscience neurologist, you know, but I have some form of synesthesia, which allows me to see and hear music with everything, or you know, out of everything, not just colors, but incidents or sounds. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been told when I wake up, I'm singing something or I'm humming something or I'm like in the middle of some music. But it goes along those lines.
So with that, you know, everything that you're viewing, that you're ingesting, you find the music in it, right?
Yep.
So now it kind of your translation is designed to keep the attention through variety and pacing, right?
Right.
So how do you
Variety and pacing. You got it, man.
so how do you how does one utilize variety and pacing yet simultaneously for the score make the music easy to remember, so you have like the famous Jaws, dun 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 dun, dun. You know what I mean? How simple is that? But it makes
Right.
it so easy to remember, and
Okay.
it builds that scene and makes that movie.
The easiest explanation I can tell you from my own point of view, from my own experience, is what you have there is a fixed theme. That that there in it of itself, it has a cadence, it has a rhythm, it has a BPM, it has a meter, it has a flow, a rhythm. Now that is a theme, a musical motif, we call it, and that sits by itself. And when you take that and you butt it up against something else going on, you know, like he made John Williams is who we're talking about, Jaws. He made grand use of French horns and low brass, baritones and whatnot, trombones, and they would do the doodly, 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 and he had what we call pizzicato strings, bloom, 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 and harps that would give you the balance. You know,
Mhm.
when the violence settled and the blood was in the water and the girl was dead and the shark was swimming off, he was done. You heard the harp, and it played this wonderful, beautiful, settling, you know, thing. And then we went to the sky, and then we went back to the next scene. I have so many, I have so many thousands of movies broken down in my head, scene by scene, from not just tutorials, but from my own tutorials I made myself. I still do it to this day.
That's what's up
But
because
I
you're so familiar with it. We got
exactly
and because of the disconnect earlier with we had we signed on the phone, we set a computer, so we got the 3 people on here, so we got 10 minutes because it triggered a little three people Zoom meeting thing.
Okay.
So with that, right? Because that brings us to a great segue for the question, so that you can express and explain to the people the modes of music and stirring that emotion.
Okay. Music modes. Here's how we do this. Let me just do it this way. Okay. Music modes. These are the scales that dictate the feelings, and there are 7 modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. Not only are these modes are well known, believe me, by your subconscious, but these
Mhm.
modes are culturally connected. So certain cultures play in certain modes. We can get into that on another discussion. But the emotions that go with this, and when you break it down with how they're used and that whole 9 yards, it's a matter of the temperature, the emotion, the climate, the setting of the scene, and they help set the scene. Um, I would suggest anyone that wants further information to Google musical modes. You can start there. And that in and of itself, just the simple scales, the scale, 7 notes, 8 notes, will dictate to you how that's played, how you make your chords, how you make your melodies, how you structure them. And I'm probably putting the cart before the horse, but you mainly want to do a character study that goes from your spotting session, so that you can get everything that goes in the scene first before you start thinking musically. Even if your director's jumped ahead and he tells you, remember the music from the scene in Scarface where he's like looking up and he sees the blimp and the blah blah blah. Now that's a theme, but it's a recurring theme. But because of the recurring theme is connected with the lead character, it plays as a fanfare. When he looks up and sees the blimp and it says "the world is yours," or "the world is your oyster," or whatever it says, this music plays and he's like, that's a special omen to him. So
Mhm.
it makes him want to feel like tomorrow I wake up and I take over the world. There you go. And that's the feeling. That's one feeling. The feeling, you mentioned Jaws, the feeling of Darth Vader entering the room or Luke Skywalker, they all have their fanfare that identifies with their character. But that fanfare melody can be injected in or butt up against or joined with abstract underscore that is not so rhythmic and not so musically related, but the mode changes. So you may get, let's go with the Indiana Jones theme. Da 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 da. Okay. Now, when you got into certain situations, it was da 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 da. That's a segue. It gives you a hint of the main melody, but the mode has changed in such a way where you go, wait a minute, that's out of tune. That sounds kind of sad, or that sounds kind of doom impending, or it sounds like, okay, our heroes are in trouble, you know?
So kind of like the first one, da 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 da, it goes up. So it's like that's like the question and the answer. And then the other
Right,
one, the second one you gave is like when it went down, does that make it
right.
like that mystery, the mysterious? So it's still like the
Yes,
question is looming, right?
right. The looming doom and gloom or whatever, sadness, whatever. That depends on modes. I believe I was just doing the Phrygian mode on that one. I have to check to see. Believe it or not, I am still so heavily experimenting with modes because I'm starting to do a hybrid of modes.
Mhm.
When you have complex characters, especially now, a lot of movies are filled with villains that we love to hate. They set it up so the bad guy is the actual person who is challenged. So he's both antagonist and protagonist. So that music becomes kind of like, whoa, you know? And I started seeing a lot of that with movies like, excuse me, the Batman. Batman's theme is strong, but Batman's theme is dark, right?
Right.
And that's a lot of That's a lot of creativity in there. And once again, it boils down to the image, the storyline, helping tell the story, but you're repeatedly reinforcing the story of his dark beginnings. But he's supposed to be a hero, but he's supposed to be an anti-hero. See, this can become real heady, real intellectual, real, you know, I try to back away from a lot of this stuff. I mean, I've been reading the comics since I was a young boy. So, I mean, but I try to back away from this stuff and learn from the guys who are composing and learn from the directors who dictate what it is they actually want. And one thing I noticed throughout all the successful films, these directors have a legitimate, they have a strong, legitimate, working relationship with the director to the point where they have their language down that they communicate with to come up with what they need musically. Okay, that's it.
So in now that you bring that up, right? In 60 seconds, tell us what it's like to communicate with a director and then communicating the music to a director.
Okay.
You said you gave some examples, but now just cut right to it. 60 seconds, go.
I've never met a director that understood music. They're so enamored with the image. They don't know anything about sound. A lot of them don't listen when you talk to them. And if you talk to them and they are listening, they're only listening for the spot where they can inject because they're the boss. I don't know too many people that are the boss that want to listen to the employee. You know what I mean? That's it. So when it comes out there, have your ego checked, get it, throw it somewhere, lose it, bury it, go and sit down like a child and just listen. Because they're a child too, and they're trying to convey where and how they want to play their game, you know? So in 60 seconds, just listen to the director, lose all your feelings and ego. And if you can play your instrument well, for me, I'm a pianist, I'm a second generation pianist. I started out playing this stuff at 11 years old. I had nephritis, I missed the 5th grade, and I was in quarantine, and my dad would come and rest for his second job at night, and I couldn't disturb him. I had to turn the sound down on the TVs. He was a TV repairman by day and drove bus at night. So I would turn the TV, say, turn the TV down, turn the TVs down. It would be like TVs in the basement, he's repairing them, and play it with keyboards. I had keyboards everywhere in there. I had an organ or electric piano or split piano, you know. And play your piano to it, and that was my video game. And an 11-year-old kid, what are you gonna tell him? He's having fun. I'm like playing to Speed Racer and Herman Munster and, you know, what, Batman and, oh God, forget it, everything. Green Hornet, Dark Shadows. Soap operas were dull because they used organs all the time. So I got tired of that quick.
So you got your own Batman theme music to your life background. So
sure.
I really appreciate this coming on the YNet7 and having this conversation. I think it's going to help a lot of people get an understanding and value of a composer and a relationship when they watch their favorite movies. Coming from someone like myself who's now composing their own music. I'm only on my 4th track, and modal I'm 4 songs, I'm on the 4th one, so a lot of this stuff is like, it's good to learn.
I'm impressed. I'm so impressed. You are on it. You are after it. You can get that. You can do that.
Thanks, fam. And then but the modal part is going to be a big help, I think, to everybody that's engaged, no matter what their skill level is. And in closing, we got about 20 seconds. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you at online.
Oh, VLEEV.net. VLEEV. That's Lee in between 2 V's, just like that. You can't miss it. LEEV's on the end. .net. 26 VLEEV 26 on IG, and the official VLEV on Twitter. That's it.
That's it. All right, Tasha Power, YNet7.
Just Google the 5 letters.
We out.